I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, the Ontario Liberal Party picks a new leader.
It is such an honor. Thank you. Thank you for your faith in me.
Bonnie Crombie takes the top job and says she's ready to put in the work to take on Doug Ford.
We can speed up the process. It will absolutely help the families.
Why Ontario plans to end mandatory inquests for workers who die on construction sites. Families who've lost loved ones tonight calling the move a mistake. The country's best and brightest coming together tonight for Canada's Walk of Fame. We'll take you to the red carpet.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Thanks for joining us. Bonnie Crombie is the new leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. The announcement coming in just a short time ago. Let's bring in our Lorenda Redekop. She's standing by live for us in downtown Toronto. Lorenda, we just heard from Bonnie, and she says, yes, she is ready to put in the work.
That's right, and there will be a lot of work to do. And in the end, this was a tight race. It really came down to the wire. It had to be decided in 3 ballots. So we had the last place candidate being dropped off every single time. But what it means is that there's new competition at Queen's Park for Premier Doug Ford. In the end, in the final ballot, it was Bonnie Crombie versus Nate Erskine-Smith. She was in the lead every round, and in that final round, she had 53%, Nate Erskine-Smith more than 46%. And in terms of voter turnout, it was around 22%, so not that high, though the party says that often in these leadership campaigns, the turnout isn't a lot. We had heard, though, from the Liberals, so proud that they had more party members now, more than 100,000, and they did say that this was the most votes that they had in their party history for a leader, almost double what they had for the last leadership. And we did hear from Bonnie Crombie in her speech, and she gave a sense of a little bit of a different Bonnie Crombie.
My biological father, he struggled with addiction and mental illness. He and my mom split up when I was 3, and we lived in a rooming house with my grandparents in High Park, Stoff Ronsensfels. And I want to tell you this because it shaped who I am today.
We really hadn't seen that side of Bonnie Crombie before. She's a longtime business person, also mayor of Mississauga for around a decade, and it feels like the other parties were already anticipating that. The PCs seem to be accusing her of being an elitist and wealthy. They talked about her owning a home in the Hamptons. She said yes, she does, but that it was something that she inherited. We also heard attacks already from the NDP comparing her to Doug Ford. Now the challenge for the Liberals will be uniting the party. And we did hear from a couple of the people who Bonnie Crombie beat in this race.
People are hurting in this province right now. There's a lot of struggles, and we have to give them hope. We have to work hard to rebuild this party behind our new leader.
If we've got a party that's committed to getting housing built, if we've got a party that's committed to serious climate action, we've got a party that's committed to defending and protecting public health care and public education and making significant investments and delivering for people in Ontario, then yeah, of course I want to be a part of that.
And Shannon, that'll be the real challenge for this party, which is in 3rd place and doesn't even have official party status.
You know, that's right, Lorenda. You're talking about some of the challenges uniting the party. What are some of the other hurdles they're facing?
Well, as they try to do that, what they need to do is raise more money. And Bonnie Crombie talked about that when she spoke to journalists just a few minutes ago, talking about how the Conservatives out-fundraise them by so much, 10 to 1, she said. And that's really how they can get more candidates and get more votes in the end for the next election. She talked about wanting to recruit more and better candidates. That's something that the Liberals really struggled with in the last election. And she was asked too about whether she will seek a seat. She said she's still going to see, but didn't rule that out and said it wouldn't necessarily have to be a seat in Mississauga either.
Okay, Lorenda, thanks so much for all your analysis. Don't go too far. We're going to check in with you again a little later on in the show. For more on Crombie's win tonight and what it means for the Liberal Party and provincial politics, head to our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. Well, in other news tonight, a man was found dead amid the debris of a 2-alarm house fire in Forest Hill.
Upon arrival, crews encountered a working fire, made entry, and initiated search and rescue operations. Following suppression and secondary search, a victim has been located inside in the structure, deceased.
Flames broke out early this morning at this house in Midtown. Toronto Fire now calling the incident suspicious and are working with police to investigate. Police say records indicate the house was vacant. There is no word yet on what may have caused the fire. And one man is dead, another in hospital after their vehicle crashed into Lake Ontario this morning. It happened near Cherry and Polson around 3:30 a.m. Now, police say the vehicle was driving at a high rate of speed as it approached a bridge that was under construction. The driver lost control of the vehicle, then plunging into the water. One man managed to get out of the lake, suffering minor injuries. Officers pulled out another man. He was pronounced dead on scene. The vehicle remains in the water at this hour as police continue to investigate. We have reaction tonight to a proposed change to how Ontario will investigate workers' deaths at construction sites. The Ford government plans to scrap mandatory inquests. Part of the reason why, it says, is the major backlog. As Sarah McMillan shows us, some advocates worry it will make it even harder for loved ones to get critical answers.
It's been 6 years since CK de Grosselier lost her brother Tim.
He was always the kind of guy who, you wanted to have around at a party. He kept everybody laughing.
He died on a construction site in 2017, hit by falling equipment while working on an elevator. It took 3 years to get a coroner's inquest, which led to 15 recommendations from the jury.
Everything from the engineer's directions, the architect's blueprints, to educating the construction site manager, to drywalling, and to retraining them on rigging.
For decades, inquests have been required in Ontario for every death at a construction site, but new legislation would make them no longer mandatory.
If we can speed up the process, it will absolutely help the families.
Instead, the coroner's office would conduct a review of construction deaths at least once a year. It's a change the province's chief coroner says makes sense.
We know that if we look at similar deaths from the same types of things, that allows us to better see trends and patterns.
Hire says the province currently has 130 construction death inquests to complete, including one that's a decade old. But some advocates say expediency shouldn't override the value of individual inquests.
And this is one of the few opportunities publicly where the public can hold the government's feet to the fire to say, do better for workers.
Under the new rules, families would still be able to request an inquest. It will be up to the coroner's office to decide whether to grant one.
You're presuming the value of the inquest before it even takes place. And so that's a real concern for family members. That should be a real concern to the industry as well, because they're not going to get the findings that they need to make work safer for people.
CK says to her, there's an obvious way to cut down on the number of inquests. She wants the province to make it mandatory to actually implement recommendations, which she hopes would mean fewer deaths like her brother's. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
The search continues for the missing kangaroo last seen yesterday in Oshawa.
We started off this morning with a team of volunteers, including drone operators that had thermal imaging. We did our best to try and find the kangaroo from the last place that we had seen it. We did not see anything, no signs of it at this point in time.
She was being transported to a zoo in Quebec when she jumped over her handlers and escaped. The last time anyone spotted her was last night in the Harmony and Winchester area. Prida says if you see the animal, do not approach. Instead, contact the pet search group Team Chelsea. the Oshawa Zoo or Oshawa Police. There's a look at the red carpet at Canada's Walk of Fame, and Avril Lavigne there. Rick Mercer's also there tonight, and hockey superstar Connor McDavid, all being honored at the event. Now, Canadians are being recognized for excellence in a number of areas, including entertainment and humanitarian work. This year, the event is celebrating its 25th anniversary, the big show being co-hosted by Juno Award-winning singer Deborah Cox and Drew and Jonathan Scott from Property Brothers. Well, it was just a gray, rainy Saturday out there, but it was warm too. We're thankful for that. Melinda Singh is with us for our first look at the forecast. Hey, Melinda.
Thanks so much. Now, for the past 3 hours, we've been seeing some scattered showers throughout areas of the GTA down through southwestern Ontario. That's just a taste of what we could be expecting as we head into your Sunday and Monday. Now, across the GTA, here's a look at our forecast. 2 degrees for your Saturday overnight. Still looking a little bit of rain across southwestern Ontario. Minus 15 for Timmins, minus 12 for Chapleau. Things are getting quite chilly across the north end. We will be looking at more colder temperatures in the long-range forecast for areas across the GTA and even into the nation's capital. Now, let's take a look at what's going on as we head into your overnight conditions. Still holding on to cloud cover, but as we head towards your Sunday morning into the afternoon hours, there is a system pushing through, giving way to threats of some heavy rainfall, even looking at the threat for some freezing rain as well. We're going to continue to see heavy amounts of snowfall throughout cottage country, even the nation's capital, Montreal, looking at well over 15 centimeters of snowfall, and then a little bit of more colder air behind it. So we could be looking at the potential for some snowy conditions as we head into your late day Monday for regions along the snowbelt regions and the north end of the GTA. Now, overall, we are looking at a little bit of a freezing rain threat. We'll get to more of this in the long range forecast.
Thanks, Melinda. Hopes of a new temporary truce in Israel's war with Hamas appear dashed, at least for now. Israel has withdrawn its negotiators from mediated talks in Qatar, prompting a new bombardment of Gaza. Chris Reyes has more, and a warning: this story contains distressing details and visuals.
Israel says the strikes are for Hamas targets in Han Yunis, more than several hundred just in the last 24 hours, sending a clear message that any kind of pause in fighting is no more. With the return of bombs, also more chaos and cries. This man says, "My brother is gone, my daughter is gone, nothing is left."
We're still humans here in Gaza, we're not numbers here. So the world should wake up this time.
As Israel and Hamas point fingers on who's responsible for breaking a delicate truce that lasted a week, world leaders gathered in Dubai scramble to keep diplomatic relations from falling apart.
It is truly heartbreaking. As Israel pursues its military objectives in Gaza, we believe Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians.
Israel says they are dropping leaflets and designating safe zones.
As we move in now to crush Hamas, we will in parallel continue to facilitate humanitarian support for the people of Gaza. That is part of our credo.
Hamas has also resumed firing rockets into Israel. Its leadership says they want a permanent ceasefire before any more hostages can be released. Also speaking from Dubai, French President Emmanuel Macron said he'll travel next to meet with the Qatari emir to help reach a new truce that can lead to a ceasefire. In Gaza, it is apparent derailed discussions towards peace cannot match the pace of destruction on the ground.
Everything in Gaza is at a breaking point. People are living in constant fear of violent death.
From Israel's strongest ally, a message that U.S. support now comes with conditions, one that's against displacement of Palestinians and any kind of Israeli siege or occupation of Gaza.
And a two-state solution then remains the best path, we believe, toward a durable peace. The President and I are committed to that goal.
A goal that for now is still clouded in the thick fog of war. Krish Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Leaders from around the world continue sessions at the COP28 conference in Dubai in the ongoing effort to combat climate change. A number of new initiatives were announced, and as Jamie Strachan shows us, the Vatican weighed in.
Your Eminence, the floor is yours.
Today in Dubai, a Vatican delegation delivered a message from the Pope, the latest global leader to sound the alarm on climate change.
The destruction of the environment is an offense against God.
Thus far, the COP summit has seen a long list of pledges, promises, and pushes to do better.
Climate change signals the need for a political change. Let us emerge from the narrowness of self-interest and nationalism.
The key focus of COP28 is reducing emissions in order to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrialized levels. It is still possible for us to reduce emissions enough in this decade to meet the 1.5 degree target, but the science tells us quite clearly that we have to hurry, despite all the geopolitical tension. A number of key initiatives announced today. The U.S. says it will sharply reduce methane pollution from its oil and gas industry.
These standards will prevent an estimated 58 million tons of methane emissions by 2038, an equivalent of 1.5 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide.
Also, a massive investment from the world's most powerful countries to help shift the focus to renewable energy.
It's a call for all nations to stop building new unabated coal power plants, a type of power plant that the United States stopped building more than a decade ago.
And a shared understanding that poorer countries need help dealing with the impacts of climate change.
Specifically in the Atlantic, coming from St. Kitts and Nevis, we are on the front line of climate change. We did not create the problem. However, we are suffering tremendously.
Amidst all the promises, there is doubt that any of it is happening fast enough, or that there is a true commitment to move the needle on climate change. The non-fulfillment of the commitments that were taken erodes the credibility of the regime. Participants here have said it will take efforts from nations big and small, rich and poor, to save the planet. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Big news tonight, Bonnie Crombie takes the top job for the provincial Liberals. Let's bring Lorenda in again. Lorenda, looking ahead, couple of questions people want to know. You know, Crombie's the mayor of Mississauga, so what happens there? Plus, she doesn't even have a seat at Queen's Park. So what does that all mean?
Well, first of all, in terms of her being the mayor of Mississauga, she has been on leave. She says that she will have to resign, obviously, but she wants to see the city's budget process through. So she expects that to be earlier in the new year. I also heard from somebody who's been involved in her campaign that it could be actually right at the end of this year. And then there's also that question, will she seek a seat? And so she says that's a big question mark. It's all to be sorted out. She is going to be meeting with party leadership tomorrow. Here's a little bit more about what she had to say on whether she will seek a seat.
And if a seat presents itself that makes sense, I'll consider it. John says it's more important. John Fraser says it's more important to go out and continue to spread the Liberal message, let people get to know me, speak to them, listen to them, so we can develop a platform that speaks to their needs. But certainly, if a seat opened up, particularly if it was in Mississauga, that would be great. I would seek it.
Then she later talked about another seat that has been recently opened up, and that's the one that was held by former PC cabinet minister Monty McNaughton. She said she would consider that. So things could get pretty spicy at Queen's Park between Bonnie Crombie and Premier Doug Ford. She is a new rival for him, and already the PC party, they put out a post on social media. They accused her of that she would like to raise taxes, also that she doesn't build housing. And earlier, they had accused her of, they seem to be suggesting that she's an elitist, that she has a home in the Hamptons. She later clarified after I spoke to you the first time, saying that the home is actually in Long Island in a working class neighborhood. So things could get interesting at Queen's Park with Bonnie Crombie now as Liberal leader.
You said it. It's already getting spicy. Thank you, Lorenda. We appreciate all your work on this today. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks so much.
So what's rain today could be snow tomorrow. Melinda is back with our full forecast. Hey again, Melinda.
If you're planning on doing some traveling for your Sunday, especially heading eastward, we are looking at the threat for freezing rain, some heavy rainfall, and even some snowfall. Well over 15 centimeters of snowfall is in the forecast for areas throughout eastern Ontario, including the nation's capital. As we head towards your Sunday morning, there is that rainfall impacting areas along the shores of Lake Ontario, Lake Huron as well. There's a freezing rain threat impacting areas, especially Highway 7, Perth, Caledar, looking at multiple hours of freezing rain accumulating on tree branches. Risk for power outages is there as well. There is a heavy snowfall from Owen Sound into Bancroft and of course City of Ottawa, where we could be expecting over 15 centimeters of snowfall by Monday, and we are going to be looking at an easing throughout your Sunday overnight into Monday morning, and some colder air filtering down across the GTA, so we could be waking up to a little bit of flurries and some light snow for regions like the city of Toronto down through Brampton and Oakville. Overall, here's a look at what we could be expecting in terms of the overall snowfall accumulations. 10 to 20 widespread cottage country, eastern Ontario, the nation's capital, in the range to see 15 to 25 centimeters of snowfall. The areas across the GTA looking around just less than 3, but as you head up the 400 over to Barrie and Orillia, 5 to 15 centimeters are in the forecast for you. Here's a more close-up look at what we could be expecting for the city of Ottawa.
Thanks so much. Toronto's firefighters kicking off Christmas festivities at their annual party today.
I liked when I did the crafts and the bouncy castle.
Seen definitely lots of people, lots of different rides, and yummy food.
This event today is for the members of all of the Toronto Fire Services, many of which won't get an opportunity to spend Christmas with their families as they'll be working on the trucks that day.
Bouncy castles, yummy food, as you heard that little guy say, arts and crafts, and of course, Santa and Mrs. Claus making an appearance. Plenty of fun being had today. This is the 25th edition of the party, all hosted by Variety Village with the help of the Toronto Firefighters Association. That's our show for you